when you're looking at Ayurveda literature, uh, it is not complete without talking about modern day literature. There's a lot of great authors like Priyavrata Sharma and my own guru, Professor C.R. Agnivesh. The work that they have done is astounding, and also a lot of journals and magazines. Unfortunately, even though this science is having a big legacy of magazines, they are not consistent. It doesn't call for the real pride of our Ayurveda magazine. They have to get a lot of work done. But I think I should just skip all the description of the authors and all. What I, my real intention is that instead of saying that yeah, there is Brihatrai, Charaka Sutruta and Vakpada, there is Lekutrai like Madhava Nidana, Charanga Samhita and Bhava Prakasha. I want my dear audience to get bombarded by this because we are not looking at a few handful of books. We are looking at a big ocean of literature that is available. All these things that I mentioned, you have either direct or indirect references. You can look at manuscript catalogs and see that these books are there. It's still available. So not as published works, but as manuscripts at least. So when the demand to read those things increases, I'm sure there are publishers in this panel, so they would start publishing it, and they are also doing a great job in bringing out a lot of such manuscripts into formal publication. So I hope this brief session, I've run out of time. So I hope whatever I said has made at least a tiny ripple in at least some of you. If that has happened, I'm most obliged and most happy. Uh, if, if you need to know more about this, I'm available by email as well. So I have to thank you all for this. Thank you, Indic Academy. Thank you, everyone, to help me to talk more on this.
So, Dr. Naman, thank you so much for taking the time. We have a couple of questions. So, if we can just take maybe a minute or so to take those questions. One of them is from Venkat Ananta. He says, "Sir, is Ayurveda therapy also effective for sports performance?"
Okay, we have to think of sports as a physical activity. So they do not talk about sports per se, but we can have a lot of references interpreted as activities and all the injuries. If you look at marma aspects, abhikata. So abhikata is exactly what is happening in sports. You get a trauma, you get a condition, and you are managing it. And there are innumerable references in all the classical literature about abhikata, aganduja vyatis, and all these things. So yes, of course. And what is happening recently is that we are getting more and more professionals who are trained in Ayurveda in the classical way, and who are also learning in extra, like sports therapy and trauma care and additional courses, and they are improving their skills on sports medicine. So there is a very growing popular segment of Ayurveda called sports Ayurveda. Of course, there is a very good solution through Ayurveda for sports conditions.
Thank you. The next question is, please tell the reference of Amrut Taila.
This Amrita Taila is mentioned in Navanitaka, the Bower manuscript. And this is available as PDFs. If you go to archive.org or a lot of free archives, you could get Bower manuscript. And in that, Amrita Taila is mentioned. Now, I am not aware of another book where this is mentioned. Perhaps, like we feel that Bower manuscript itself is a compilation work, collection of information from different textbooks. So another point is there are different oils in the name of Amrita Taila. But the specific reference for Amrita Taila, I may be able to send it across. Okay. I got it from a book of History of Indian Medicine by G.N. Mukherjee. It is that Taila's prescriptions also given.
Okay, thank you. And the last question is, Bharadwaj's works in Ayurveda. Could you please explain more?
Now, Bharadwaja was very pivotal because more than his literary works, a guru is best known by his students, right? So one of the students, according to Susura Samhita, is Dhanvantari himself. In fact, from Brihat Dharma Purana and Brahma Vaivarta Purana and all, there is this story, the life story of Dhanvantari himself. Dhanvantari was a direct disciple of Bharadwaja, and while completing his course, he married the three daughters of Achini Kumara, and slowly Dhanvantari started losing interest in the material, uh, life. And what Bharadwaja did, along with sages like Galava, is that they made him focus more on earthly life by making him king of Kashi. So this was a key point in history where actually we got a Rajarshi, to settle near Kashi and become a ruler at the same time teach. Dhanvantari was fully focused on the books, and that's how we got the Dhanvantari system of medicine. So we call Sushruta the father of surgery, but in fact, we at least Ayurveda people know that Sushruta actually went to Dhanvantari asking him to teach surgery. So Sushruta cannot be the father of surgery. It was Dhanvantari, and that would have happened only if Bharadwaja had intervened. Bharadwajiyam and Bheshaj Kalpam are the major books of Bharadwaja. Like I said before, Bharadwajiyam only the chapter on Prameha is available as a manuscript. Bheshaj Kalpa, you don't have the direct book, but you have the commentary on it by Venkatesh. Venkatesh is from the Atraya system.
Excellent.
I hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Naman. And it was a pleasure listening to you and everything that you shared. We'll now move to our second session in this second program in this session. And I'm not sure if Shri R.P. Jain has joined us or not. If he has, I don't see him. If he is not, then I will request Ms. Shweta to carry on with the introductions.
Yeah. So I'm here on behalf of Mr. R.P. Jain, who is the head of Motilal Banarsidass Publishing House and also the chairperson of the MLBD Research and Resource Foundation. And he has done extensive work in talking to people and to different stakeholders about vegetarianism and the importance of ahimsa in our eating habits. And I'm making this presentation on his behalf, which is on ahimsa and healing foods. So I'll start the presentation with a story. Once upon a time, there were two storks and two crabs, and they told each other that they would play hide and seek. The storks were thinking of eating the crab, and the crabs were thinking of eating the stork. A sage passed by. He could sense what each of the animals was thinking. So he went to the storks and he said, what are you doing? So they said, we are pretending to play hide and seek, but actually we want to eat the crabs. So the sage said, do you know that the crabs also want to eat you? So the storks became frightened and they said, what do we do? So the sage said, give up on all thoughts of violence and you will not be eaten. Similarly, he went to the crabs and convinced them not to eat the storks. And soon the storks and crabs became friends. And because of this, because of the sage, India has a long history of non-violence. Ahimsa is a basis of yoga. We find the non-violence tradition in Hinduism, in Jainism, and in Buddhism. The Ramayana starts with the story of two birds who are a couple and who are hunted by a hunter who kills one of the birds and the other bird grieves. And Valmiki, the sage, seeing the grief of the bird that is alive, curses the hunter in the form of a sloka. And it is this sloka or meter which is used to compose the Ramayana. The Vedas, of course, to extol the importance of cows and how we must revere the cows as the earth mother. Sarama, a dog, is also revered in the Vedas. I don't think there is any culture in the world which has treated animals and birds and fishes as equals as much as the Indian culture. In India, gods descend in the animal form, and this we can see in the form of the Dasavatars, in the numerous, we were talking earlier of the Ashwin twins who are half horse and half human, but basically gods. and they are the healing physicians. So it is in the Indic tradition alone that we find so much of reverence for nature and for animals. And it is not just peaceful animals like cows that are revered, even snakes, which are, in fact, snakes are revered a lot because they are a symbol of immortality and of the Kundalini. So, from the Indian tradition, what we learn is the importance of reverence for all of life and for peaceful coexistence, which means that in our food also we should not eat animals. I'll just make a brief presentation. I'm just sharing my screen. So the ahimsa is the importance of existence because it helps in a harmonious relationship between man and nature. The reasons for ahimsa are that it leads to inner fitness, it is important for animal rights, and it is important for the planetary health. A short history of vegetarianism. In India, many communities are vegetarian by family custom and have been so for thousands of years. Indian scriptures speak of non-harmfulness or ahimsa towards all living beings. Mahavir, Jain, and Gautam Buddha had preached vegetarianism to their followers, giving their practice deep roots in India. I'm not just looking at Indian history of vegetarianism. In the world history of vegetarianism, the word vegetarian was coined in 1840s. Vegetarian societies were created in 1847, and Mahatma Gandhi used to lead a vegetarian society in London. And by the end of the 18th century, vegetarianism was advocated by medical lecturers, moral philosophers, sentimental writers, and political activists. This history of vegetarianism is very rooted it has Indian roots. It was only vegetarianism as a concept across the world started in the 1800s, but it started because of Europeans traveling to India and becoming fascinated with the doctrine of ahimsa or non-violence. And the impact of vegetarianism that Indians had reached across the world. For 400 years, Indian philosophy has been effective and shaping vegetarianism, honoring the earth as our mother and the cow as a symbol of nature's bounty. And now there are so many studies. In today's times, there's so many numerous studies on the impact of vegetarianism on health and how it helps our health. I'm just stopping the screen share. So I would like to conclude by saying that vegetarianism is the essence of Indian culture, and it is an inherent part of our being, and it is very, very important part of the healing culture of India. Thank you so much. I thank Indic Academy and the Center for Soft Power for this opportunity.
Dr. Dhwani, thank you so much.
Okay, good evening, one and all. We will now move on to our panel discussion where we have Dr. Venugopalan sir, Dr. Jaykrishnan sir, Dr. Prasad and Dr. Ram Manohan sir. So this session is all about understanding health in the real sense. So we all feel we are healthy if we live a disease-free life. So these expert physicians and stalwarts of Ayurveda and Sanskrit, we will try to understand what actually health means. So before going into the session, I would like to introduce the panelists of today. We have with us Professor Venugopalan sir, who is a professor in Department of Sanskrit, Samhita and Siddhanta in Sri Jayendra Saraswati Ayurveda College, Chennai. And he has published several research articles on topics like Manava Jivanaya, Ayurvedasya Yogadanam, etc. He's an expert in yoga, Sanskrit, and he has been in the field of teaching Sanskrit to Ayurveda students for several years now. We welcome you, sir. We have Dr. Jaykrishnan with us, who is the Chief Medical Officer at the Arya Vaidya Pharmacy, Chennai. He has presented both papers in national and international seminars on various aspects of Ayurveda. And in fact, even on invitation from ARBA, the Ayurvedic Association of Brazil, he has visited Brazil to deliver several sessions, and he is also a stalwart with several years of clinical experience. We welcome you, sir. We have Dr. P. Ram Manohar, who is the research director of Amrita School of Ayurveda, who graduated with his BMS from Coimbatore, and he has done his MD from Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, Bangalore, and he has been contributed to the field of Ayurvedic research for the last 30 years and more. And he has several publications to his name, and he has been honored with several awards, and we welcome you, sir. We have Dr. M. Prasad, who is a postgraduate in Ayurveda and director and chief physician from Ashtanga Ayurveda Chikitsalayam and Vidyapeetham from Kerala. And he has also been in the field from 1996, and he has been practicing for several years now, and he is considered to be one of the pioneers of using Ayurveda to treat autistic kids. So we welcome you, sir, and we are looking forward to a great session, and we hope to understand a few pearls of wisdom from all of you. So considering that our session is about swasthya, we would like to begin with Dr. Venugopalan, sir. We would like to know what is swasthya. We generally translate the word health to swasthya. Is it exactly a right translation? What exactly is this word swasthya?
Thank you, Dhani. Namaskarangal to all the panelists and viewers of this program today. At the outset, I offer my thanks to Indic Academy, Center for the Soft Power, who have organized this wonderful program, and also to the APRF, AVPRF, Coimbatore, for having chosen me to be part of this panel discussion. And I thank all the people. The word swastha, or a healthy person, is defined in clear terms by Sushruta in his magnum opus, Sushruta Samhita. Thus, Tamadoshaha, Tamadnishcha, Tamadhatu Malakriyaha, Prasannatmendriya Manaha, Swasthayityavidhiyate. In fact, one may be surprised to learn the definition offered by WHO on health that reads that health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. This definition was not changed since 1948. The definition of personal health, according to WHO, is its ability to take charge of the health by making conscious decisions to be healthy. It not only refers to physical well-being of an individual, but it also comprises the wellness of emotional, intellect, social, economical, spiritual, and other areas of life. These are, in fact, ideas of health of Sushrutacharya that has been adopted by the WHO. Now let's learn whatever Sushruta has to say or define the term health according to the teachings of the earliest scripture. Doshadhatu malamulam hi shariram, or Doshadhatu malamulo hi deha. It is the Siddhanta of Ayurveda. So, our shariram, the body, is functioning based on these three components, though made of Pancha Mahabhuta, Prithvi, Up, Tejo, Vayu, Akasha. So, whatever happens, the body has to involve all these three components, namely Dosha, Dhatu, Mala. Hence, Sushruta says Samadosha, etc. Let me explain the grammatical structure of this, these words. Samaha doshaha isya saha. So the samadosha is structured in Bahuvrihi Samasa, according to Samskrita Vyakarana. So all the Samadosha, Samadhi, Samadhatu Malakriyaha, and Prasannatmendriya Manaha are attributives to the word swastha. So the word swastha is defined by 4 adjectives. So next one, Samaha Agnayaha Yasyasaha. Again, it is also in a Bahuvrihi Samasa. Dhatunam Malanam Cha Kriyaha Dhatu Malakriyaha. This is in Tatpurusha Samasa. And later, Dhatumalakriyaha Tamaha Yasya Saha Dhatumalakriyaha. Then comes the fourth one. Atma cha, Indriyani cha, Manaha cha, Atmendriya Manamsi. This is in Itaretara Dvandva Samasa. Prasannani cha tani Atmendriya Manamsi Yasya Saha Prasannatmendriya Manaha. So again, it is Dvandva Garbhita Bahuvrihi Samasa, according to our Vyakarana understanding. So all these four are now known as adjectives for the word swastha. So a healthy person is he whose doshas maintain a samavastha, a kind of equilibrium among themselves. In the same way, for all Agnis, there are 13 Agnis according to Ayurvedic Siddhanta. All Agnis also do maintain an equilibrium, and all the actions of the dhatus and malas also go in synchronization with each. Besides all these three aspects, your Atma, Indriyani, and Mana, all these three are also to be in pleasant state. All these four aspects together determine the person's health. Interestingly, the word Atma in this shloka is not always soul. The mind or even the Sharira, the body, is also called Atma in different contexts. So in this context, the word Atmendriya Mana is the Atma is Sharira. It refers to our human body according to Dalhana, the commentator, main commentator of Sushruta. So the prasannata or the pleasant state experienced by the individual at physical level, body's functional level, and emotional level. All these three together make someone a swastha. In this context, we need to go to Charakacharya also. What he defines as swastha. In Indriya Sthanam, that is the 5th book of Charaka Samhita, in this 4th chapter, there is a shloka. Swasthaha prajna viparyasaihi indriyartheshu vaikritam pashyantiye asat bahushaha esham maranamadishe in Arishta Lakshana Varga. So, let us not try to know the meaning of this entire shloka, as the context of the shloka deals with something totally different. It's not connected to this thing. But the word swastha, how it is dealt by Sarakacharya here. The Chakrapani Datta, the commentator of Charaka Samhita, defines the term swastha iti avikrtendriya manasaha. So according to Charaka also, swastha is someone whose bodily functions and functions of the mind both are in sync with each other, and the person feels comfort at both levels. So this definition goes well with his own words elsewhere in same Charaka Samhita, where he says, Vikaro dhatu vaishamyam, samyam prakriti ruchyate, sukha samyakam arogyam, vikaro dukkham evacha. So according to this verse, when dhatus don't maintain their equilibrium, it is called vikrita avastha. They are imbalanced. That culminates in giving bad experience and cause dukkham to the person. Whereas when those dhatus maintain equilibrium, they give a pleasant state of mind, and the person would feel most comfortable. So, going by all these definitions, the other three of the four adjectives given to this swastha, that is samadoshaha, samadhi, samadhatu malakriya, are all only detailed explanation of the fourth definition, prasannatmendriya mana. You may even call it as a complementary prasanna in order to qualify the swastha. So one can clearly say the definition of health is, according to all the acharyas of Ayurveda, the present state of all the three components of the human. That is mind, functioning of the organ, the internal mechanism, and the outer shell of the person, that is his body. When these three are helping the human to be happy with his existence, is termed as a healthy one. Now, when the mind and body both are required to be in happy or present state, I am reminded of philosophy of Yoga Darshana, that the Kaivalyam or the realization that occurs to the sadhaka, all his other hindrances, or we call it as disturbances, physical or mental, whatever disturbances that one may have, other health issues, and other various issues that get immediately resolved at that moment itself. The Sutram of Patanjali in Yoga Darshanam reached Tatah Pratyakchetanadhikamah Apyantaraya Bhavascha. The word Antaraya is hindrance or disturbance. There are 13 kinds of hindrances that are enlisted by Patanjali there in next sutra. And the first hindrance of the sadhaka being the vyadhi of Tridosha. The Tridosha Krita vyadhis will immediately go off from the sadhaka the moment he realizes that he aham brahmasmi. If that experiences, somebody experiences that aham brahmasmi, that is the yoga accepted kaivalyam. Next moment he is devoid of all the rogas. So 7 sutras are also given by Patanjali that offers to keep our chitta, the mind, in present state. Chitta prasada parikara karmani. So going by all these ideas, we can certainly claim that Ayurvedic ideas and yogic ideas are 2 sides of the same coin. The world all over rejoices over practice of yoga, but people forget that it is Ayurveda alone that could help a yoga sadhaka to maintain his health, to achieve his goal in attaining his mental health. So, when you come to the last word, the swastha, now having heard all these definitions according to various acharyas of Ayurveda, now the swastha is defined like Svena tishtati, it is swastha. The svena is svabhavena. What is the svabhava? Sukham. The Yoga Sutra begins with Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. The moment the Chitta Vritti Nirodha happens, all the business that the Chitta that involves with, when they all go off, that is the Yoga. Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Next Sutram, Tada Drashtuhu Swarupe Avasthanam. The moment when the person is devoid of all the Chitta Vritti, he becomes the embodiment of Parabrahma. Drashtuhu, Drashta is the Paramapurusha. The Purusha, that is Ishvara. That Swarupe Avasthanam. He becomes one with the Ishvara. There is absolutely no difference between the Ishvara and himself. So that is the Swarupam or Swabhava. So Swabhavena Tishtati is Swastha. Or Swasmin Tishtati, one who lives on his own terms, in terms of functioning of his body, organs, limbs, mind, etc. without any medication or any outside support to compensate the lack of sleep. So even Swar is the Avyaya to mean Swargaloka, Swaravyayam, Swarganaka. Swaha Tishtati is Swastha. One who feels as if he is in the heaven, though he is in the Bholoka, in this mortal body, but he feels as if he is in the Swargaloka. That kind of an experience, the happiness, the comfort that he feels is the indication of someone to be termed as Swastha. So, with all this, you can say, if somebody feels that I am happy, aham sukhi, then he is Swastha. Aham dukhi is the aswastha. This is how we can look at this shloka and understand the gamut of the entire subject called swasthya.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Bhava, swasthya, that is the nature of being healthy is swasthya. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir. It was really enlightening to know how a single word has so many aspects to it and so many definitions attached to it. And I think we must try to examine ourselves if we really fall into this category of swastha or not. So Dr. Jayakrishnan sir, I would like to ask you, Dr. Venugopal sir ended by saying aham sukhi. So how will a person know that he is physically healthy? Well, mental aspects already Venugopal sir has covered to a certain extent. From a clinician's point of view, if you could tell us how a person can understand whether he's physically healthy or not. Dr. Jayakrishnan sir.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Please go on.
So thank you, Indian Academy of Power, PRF, for inviting me to be part of this intellectual discussion regarding Swasthya. It all started with Samadosha, Samagnisha, Samadhatu, Malakriya, Prasannalpendriya Manaha, Swasthaitaviti. From the explanation of Dr. Venugopal Sir, I would like to take that quotation, Susmin
I think we have lost Dr. Jaykrishnan sir's connection. Dr. Jaykrishnan sir, we lost you in the last few minutes.
Yeah. Is that clear?
Yeah, please go on.
Yeah. So, generally, any Shastra will be talking about a perfect mood, 100%. What you say, because all Shastras are, Indian Shastras are related to the derived methodology from Vedas, which talks about a complete picture of whatever you are talking. So, in our Ayurveda Shastra also, when you see the health being defined, it will be a definition which aims at perfect health. Okay, so you must have a, what to say, I always used to say that Shastras are related to the truth. So naturally, a perfect mode will be explaining every aspect of Ayurveda. In that angle only, we need to find out what is the meaning of Swasthya. Second thing is that we know, as per this Vedic tradition, I always used to say that the methodology of Shastra is derived from Vedas, Upanishads, and philosophies, where you see that an individual can have a physical plane and a metaphysical mental plane and the spiritual being. So the purpose of using the physical plane and the mental plane goes to the individual. That kind of a reference you can see in many contexts of Ayurveda. Like even Chikitsa, you are doing to the Purusha, not to the body, not to the mind. Chikitsa, Chikrita Purusha. So, the individual means a person who takes the body for a limited period of time and getting connected to it with the mind. This is an overall understanding. So, the way you try to describe any Shastra will be according to what is the way you create a Shastra or a thought process of a Shastra without deviating from what is the absolute explained in Vedas. In fact, see, you will be able to derive it to the subtle level and you'll be able to expand it to the maximum gross plane as and when needed. This kind of a reduction and expansion makes it similar to Ayurveda, makes it very similar to mathematics, or this methodology is actually derived from this Vedic understandings of what is absolute. Then from there you expand to the mental plane and physical plane. This can be very well understood in the explanation of Swasthya. So I would just like to say the first line of that, Samadosha, Samagnisha, Samadhatu, Malakka. So very superficial way, somebody wants to know whether you are healthy. Your basic physiological functions can be observed, subjective. Okay, that is the Malakriya. Basically, urine or the bowel movements or digestive capacity, or even sweating. Your normal physiological activities are taking place. Excretory process is taking place very normally. Is the most superficial way of understanding the physical body. Okay. That means internally all other activities are taking place smoothly. So if the external features what everybody can observe, the normal physiological activity. So in that, very typically, bodily related activities results in the excretion process of urine, motion, and sweat. This is very superficial, even a layman can observe himself. And that indicates that your body is having the 7 levels of transformation taking place in a smooth way. When we say 7 dhadus, this is the stuff of the body according to Ayurveda. What you eat is getting transformed into 7 levels and remain as the gross structure of the body. Everything comes under that understanding. Before being sublimed into the energy for being utilized for different activities. Before it is sublimed to the energy form, the matter is 7 dhadus. So if this 7 dhatu transformation is very smooth, from this transformation only you get the excreta form. If the excreta is properly formed, it indicates that the basic transformation of the physical structure is almost normal. Transformation process is the stuff. It is a process of transformation because according to Ayurveda, body is something which is continuously disintegrating. So this transformation process of dhadus are normal and which will reflect in the normal excretory process. Okay, so when you talk about the dhadus and all, everything you are not directly visualizing, but you can just imagine what is grossly explained is excreta. And in turn, if dhadus transformation has to be proper from the food, we know that there is a difference in the Western understanding. According to Indian Shastras, Annad Bhudani Jayani. The body is formed out of food, basically. The food is Panchabhuta in nature, body is Panchabhuta in nature. So body is just transformed into, the food is just transformed into body and is being utilized. So food is disintegrated by what we call it as Agni. Agni is performing the essential disintegration of food. Then impact of Agni in the Dhatu level, we call it as Dhatu Agni, which will be disintegrating each Dhatu so that the next Dhatu is formed. And finally, Dhatu, the structure is sublimed and energy is utilized for different activities. So you get Dhatu Agni there. Even in the subtle plane of Dhatu, there will be Bhuda, which will be helping for the essential, inevitable disintegration. So if normal excretion process is smooth, you ensure that your structure transformation is happening smoothly, which will reflect in the normalcy of optimum Agni. It's not a fixed thing. It is a subjective understanding. Agni is a subjective understanding. It's not an objective. The moment you say subjective, you understand the matter from the plane of mind, not from the plane of sense organs. So generally, Shastras are subjective in nature. When you say Agni, you cannot directly see, but you can experience, you can visualize, you can imagine what is your digestive capacity very normally. By habit, by nature, you get a capacity to digest. If that is continuously sustained, you feel very comfortable with your stomach after eating, before the next food time. Your stomach remains very, very comfortable. That comfort level indicates that you have kept an optimum level of Agni. Okay, to remain with this optimum level of Agni, we know Panchabhuta, in this Prithvi, Jala, Agni, Vayu, Akash. The middle element is the Agni, which is actually connecting Prithvi and Jala on one side and Vayu and Akash on the other side. The gross part is Prithvi and Jala, which is in Ayurveda known as Kapha. The subtle part is Vayu and Akasha, which is known as Vata. So this Vata and Kapha can be managed, balanced with the help of Agni. Agni generally joins with the Jala part to remain, but at the same time it will be doing a damage to ensure that the proper Vata mode is also precipitated. So the Agni is properly maintained. The Agni is optimum. In any disease, we say the ultimate treatment will be for Agni. Karaga specifically says, Kayo Agni Tasya Chikitsa Kayo. Entire Chikitsa is ultimately aimed at creating a normal state Agni. Then only you can claim that your structure is normal, brought back to the normal after the assault of the disease. So in case this Agni is maintained, you see that Kapha related gross structure can be normally maintained. That means food can be digested well, disintegrated well to supply the Kapha related gross Snigdha content. Actually, in fact, it is Snigdha content to the gross structure so that Vata can perform all the normal activities. So that will be creating an interbalance between the Kapha, Pitta, Vata. It's not a direct balance, it's an interbalance because all the three of them are partially opposite so that you can have a smooth disintegration within itself. Body is not going to be staying forever. So a smooth disintegration has to be there. So you need partial opposites. Kapha is totally opposite to Vata, whereas Pitta is partially opposite to both. So with the partial opposite, it ensures that the essential disintegration is happening through a smooth function. So that we all are familiar with that, we don't react to that. When this disintegration happens at an unwanted time, which is what is known as disease, we try to react, we try to resist, because that extra disintegration is a negative impact. Sukha satmika marogyam vikaro dukkhameva. So that creates a dukkha feel, and whereas the healthy status creates a sukha feel as per Vedas, sukhartha sarva bhutanam mata sarva pramukteha. So we all do everything to remain happy. So this is the level with which we can create a happiness or healthy feel in the physical plane. The other part we are not actually entering, but we ensure that from the gross plane, you understand how this is being maintained, but it ends up understanding subtle planes of physical structure. When you say dosha, it is a functional plane of the body structure, and it also is understood from the plane of mind. In all shastras, we look from the plane of mind to understand the same physical structure, so that functional plane is given an extra importance to the structural compared to the structural plane. So physical plane can be understood if you are closely observing what is happening at the level of your respiratory process, normal physiological process, including urine, motion, and sweat, bowel movements, and your digestive capacity. And in relation to that, you can say how you sleep or walk and all normal activities if you feel comfortable with your body. This is a very superficial understanding, which indicates that in the deeper plane of the physical structure, three doshas are having an interbalance. Dosha samya, we call it as dosha samya. So that is understanding the deeper plane with reference to the gross plane. I think this much part can be managed by any individual if he is capable of creating self-observation, self-analysis of normal activity. Okay, other part I'm not entering. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. So we've now learned that it is so important for us to be conscious of what we eat, what we think, what we do, and everything. So thank you so much for enlightening us, sir. Before proceeding with the discussion with the other doctors, Shri R.P. Jain sir has joined the meeting. I now open the floor to to R.P. Jain sir. Could you share a few words, please? R.P. Jain ji, you could please unmute. R.P. Jain ji, are we connected? Could you please unmute and talk?
I've also.
It's already unmute.
Okay, we couldn't hear you. Please go ahead, sir. We are waiting.
Well, as maybe most of you might be knowing, I'm not a scholar of Ayurveda, but definitely we publish a lot of books on Ayurveda, yoga, and all that. And we have well-known, as a publisher, we have well-known books by authors like David Frawley and Madam Tiwari and many others that we publish. So that is one of our main contribution as a publisher. And as you may like to know, our publishing has been there for more than 100 years now, probably 120 years now. And we are still very keen to publish more and more books on Ayurveda if scholars or otherwise are interested. That is one of the main things I wanted to mention here, chiefly because the whole webinar is on Ayurveda and health. And I am not a scholar of Ayurveda, but I have been talking about similar subjects on health and yoga, as well as mostly on vegetarianism, which I think Shweta has already spoken to all of you. And she has mentioned a lot about the field, vegetarianism, and as well as we would. Hello?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. So we are still very keen to publish more and more books on Ayurveda. And I feel that vegetarianism is part of, or Ayurveda is part of Ayurveda as well as vegetarianism. As far as I understand, of course, there are texts like Charak and others where they talk about non-veg food for the benefit of health. That I know. But basically, the focus is more on vegetarianism. And we would like to publish a lot of books on vegetarianism, Ayurveda, organic food, and many such areas that are very important these days, especially in the modern times. So I'm sure the panel would understand what I'm trying to say. And This was a short speech I wanted to make. I think the rest of the things, presentation, she has, Shweta has already done, or maybe she'll be doing in the next sessions. So, thank you so much. I couldn't speak much because I was slightly unwell. Otherwise, I would have spoken much more. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining in, sir. Despite your ill health, we do hope you take good care of yourself and get well soon. There's just a little question, if you could answer asked by Dr. M. Prasad, who's also a panelist. He has asked if there is any possibility of Charaka Pradipam getting published again. Apparently, your house had brought its earlier editions.
We are very much keen to do that, but unless the original edition that was published long back probably in Lahore, if the original edition is available, then I think it can be published. Unfortunately, that Charak Pradeep is not available, so we are unable to publish. But if from some library, from some scholar, or from somewhere or the other, some institution, if the book can be traced, we can definitely go ahead with publishing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Please take care of yourself.
Thank you. Thank you.
Continuing with our panel discussion. So we learned from Dr. Jayakrishnan, sir, that what we eat is what we are and what we think is also what we are. So I would now like to move on to Dr. Prasad, sir. So, sir, Jayakrishnan sir had mentioned how one can understand whether he is healthy or not. So from your clinical expertise, can you share some tips on how a person can ensure that he's going the right way towards his health? Dr. Prasad.
Thank you, Dr. Dhwani. First of all, namaskaram to all the attendees, all the co-panelists, and special mentioning about AVP and the Center for Soft Power for this wonderful evening with this lot of communication, exchange of ideas and discussions. So you were talking about or asking about what are the points that one has to take care other than this aharam or food to be healthy in swasthya. Yeah, that's an interesting point, because Venugopalan sir mentioned the depth of the word. And Jayakrishnan sir mentioned in detail. His mic is unmute. The host can mute him, I think. He's still unmute. I think if the host can help, that would be great. Anyway, I'm continuing. So the Ayurvedic perspective of swasthya revolves around many aspects. Actually, it is not confined to maybe the so-called parameters from the laboratory or an X-ray or scan or something like that. It has got lots of deeper meanings when you say that one is healthy or one is in swasthya. And we can find two specific concepts present in Ayurveda. One is about dinacharya and the other one is about Ritucharya, Dinacharya and Ritucharya. Charya by and large means, and Dinacharya means the
उसका जवाब अंडरस्टूड होता है जब वो मेरे को बुला रहे हैं, इसका मतलब तेरे को भी बुला रहे
हैं. Yeah, I think now it is mute. Fine. So Dinacharya is about the daily routine for healthy living, and Ritucharya is about the seasonal improvisations or modifications that one has to do for a healthy living. And these are very important. Sometimes we may think that all these things are matters of the past, of historical importance only. They are not relevant in the present life, present society or so. But I think this new situation of the COVID-19 pandemic has brought back the original ideas, the core ideas of Dinacharya and Ritucharya back into the center stage, I should say. Because Dinacharya was about how to live a healthy life every day. So it was talking about maintaining the body with many things like doing proper exercise, taking the timely food, avoiding untimely food, and stick on to the food which you are familiar with for maybe, I would say, generations. Foods which are traditional, foods which are seasonal. So all these things are discussed. Then how to maintain the sharira, the body, with certain procedures like oil massage every day, then certain therapeutic or therapeutic-like procedures like doing nasyam every day, doing this dhumapanam every day, all these things. So these things have become of core importance right now, when we were thinking that all these things are related to somebody like maybe a king or somebody of that sort, where the daily activities are more or like a luxury. But now I think even the common man has come to that stage of doing nasya every day, or kabalam every day, the medicated gargling every day, and giving due importance to the way in which you are doing the brushing of your teeth, or applying this oil on your head, on body, and all these things have come to the more significant plane. Then another aspect regarding the Dinacharya is how a person should live in a society, live in a domestic setting. All these things are very important. The moral aspects of personal life as well as social life, the ethical aspects of personal and social life, all these things are also very important as far as healthy living is concerned. Ayurveda is very keen about the ayus. We call it ayus, maybe longevity. And that ayus should be personally enjoyable as well as healthy socially, what should I say? As far as a person's health is concerned, it is not something which is related to his own personal experience, but it has got a wider perspective, like how the environment, the fellow creatures around him, all these aspects are feeling it like. That is also of due importance. So we can find the scriptures or the samhitas dividing this type of ayus to two. That means sukhayu and hitayu. In sukhayu, we will find, okay, it is confined to your convenience, your health, your luxury, it's confined to a person or moving around a person. Whereas hitayu is not like that. It is talking about the morality or the ethical aspects of life, then the compassion or control over your senses and mind. All these things are to be considered very seriously while we talk about health or swasthyam beyond the conventional meaning of the word. Then one can find many other aspects related to the practice of healthy living. And one such wonderful idea is all about the importance given to the seasons. Then we call it as Ritucharya, how to live according to the seasons or the climatic conditions. Everybody knows that we are all in the threat of climate changes, and fresh diseases are evolving. Even now in the present pandemic, there are many studies or postulates. There are all these viral infections which are growing day by day, are having close connection with the change that has happened in the climatic conditions, the global weather and everything. So a healthy living has got shades of meaning in that plane as well. One can find the detailed description about the finer understanding of the way in which a living body is going to interact with the environment, especially the climatic changes. It may not be universal because the climatic conditions are not universal, but the idea is universal. The concept is universal. How a human body is going to interact with the environmental influence and how to make the necessary changes to withstand the influence, the adverse influences of all these seasonal variations. That also is of prime importance as far as the maintenance of swasthyam is concerned. Then another important aspect is how to have the sort of health intelligence or what we call as the prajna, how to have that prajna, the health intelligence, especially related to that the social aspect of living. That is also very important, and we can find terms like prajnaparadham, a problem with the intelligence, health intelligence of a person, which can push him down to the levels, different levels of morbidity. And the entire health, concept of health or swasthyam can be seen moving around a key word called balam, and all activities, every activity of a human being should always be focusing on his or her balam. Balam, I think maybe a strength or vitality or something, that may be a loose translation, and that balam can be seen reflected in many ways in the literature as well as in our experience, in the clinical experience as well. Sometimes it can be the capacity to prevent ailments. Sometimes it can be the capacity to heal ailments, but above and overall, it should reflect the capacity to enjoy health. I'm not going to the details of that different hues of experience of health, which I think our Venugopalan sir has explained in detail. And I think, yeah, these are the basic concepts that I would like to share with all. Of course, if there are some few more points, I think if it is coming in the discussion part, we will be attending them. Thank you, Dr. Dhwani, once again.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So again, with every speaker, we are getting a broader view of what swasthya is and how it is not restricted to BMI or weight or certain numbers, numerical figures. It is all mental, spiritual, as well as physical. But you had also mentioned about the present COVID situation where people are turning towards their health. But now I would like to ask Dr. Ram Manohar sir, in this present situation, there are people like Prasad sir said who have started focusing on their health more. But there are also a huge number of people who have gone into deep stress and anxiety because they're not able to cope up with the situations outside. And if we talk to them about their health, they say, we don't even have the time to think about our health. So, what would you like to say as an advice from a clinician's point of view to people who cannot think of their health and who fail to take the required steps and also manage their mental health?
First of all, namaste to all the distinguished panelists, the organizers, Center for Soft Power AVP Research Foundation. So my teacher, Ayushman sir, my colleague, Dr. Prasad sir, and the most respected Dr. Venugopalan sir. It's a pleasure to be present here today and to voice my views on this very important topic. Now, coming to what Dr. Dhwani asked, what do you do if people cannot think about their health? I mean, frankly, they will end up in hospital. I mean, there is no other way out. If you don't think about your health, you have to face the consequences. So, Ayurveda itself has been created, the search for Ayurveda came not basically for the pursuit of health. It was basically for curing disease. When people couldn't follow, the proper ways of living and diseases manifest. Vigna Bodha Yada Roga Pradur Bodha Sharirinam. Tapopavasa Adhyayana Brahmacharya Vyartayusham. In Charaka Samhita also, in Rasayana Pada, it is mentioned that Rishaya Khalukadaji Chalina Yaya Virascha, the rishis themselves, they went into Gramya Jivitam and then they lost all their powers, tapas, and they became sick. And then they were also inquiring how to get back the health. And the solution is Ayurveda. So I don't know really how we can make people take this decision, important decision. Ayurveda begins only when you want to take care of your health. Ayu kamaya manena dharmartha sukha sadhanam ayurvedopodesheshu videya paramadana. So unless we take that first step, because we are talking about health. If you don't want to be healthy, then there is no way Ayurveda can also help you to be healthy. Having said that, I want to also point out that Ayurveda is a science of prayaschitta. It is for ordinary people like us who are not able to take care of our health, in the ideal way. That is why it is said to be Atharva Vedasya Upangam. In Kashyapa Samhita, it is very clearly mentioned. Katham cha Ayurveda prag utpanna. Atharva Veda Upanishatsu prag utpanna. And what is Atharva Veda? Atharva Veda is a Veda of prayaschitta. Chikitsa is prayaschitam. Ayurveda is prayaschitta. It already means that you failed to follow the proper ways of life. And that is why the compensation. So that is the positive thing that Ayurveda tells us. Charaka Samhita also begins with Bheshaja Chatushka, which means if you get sick, if you don't follow the rules of life, you are going to get sick. And Ayurveda comes with the promise that there is something which we can do. So I want to talk about 3 things here. One is that it is a very dangerous state to be in where you are not concerned about your health. If you cannot really think that your health is important, then it is very self-destructive. So that is, we should really come out of that. Dr. Prasad was mentioning about health intelligence. I mean, the future, even the pandemic is teaching us that we have to become more aware of our own health and take responsibility for it. Health intelligence has to be awakened. So even when we become concerned about health, there are things. I want to just tell a story. I mean, it was said that when Buddha became enlightened, he became silent. He wouldn't say anything. So the angels became worried. They came down and told Buddha, you must speak because once in a millennium somebody gets this kind of experience. So Buddha said, for those who already know, there is no point in my speaking. I mean, it's not going to help them. And those who do not want to know, there is no point in my speaking because even if I speak, it will not help them. And then the angel said, there are people in between. And Buddha finally obliged, he said, for those people who are, in between, who are struggling. So there has to be some initiative if Ayurveda should be helpful for us. So it is not for people who completely, go in a wrong path in their lives. But let us come to the other aspect. The second point I want to say is that Ayurveda is Prayaschitta, and Prayaschitta is of two types. One is the Prayaschitta that you do after you get a very severe disease. This is not so good. You may have some treatments, but depending on how severe the problem has become, you may be only able to manage your health. Diseases which are not curable, you may have to live with the disease. But some Prayaschitta is there. Ayurveda tries to offer Prayaschitta up to the end. Yavat Kanthagada Prana, Tavat Bhaishajya Vajarit. So we can try to give Prayaschitta till the end. So the Prayaschitta that you do after you get disease has some limitations. There may be some Vaikalya or some limitation which you have to live with. But there is another kind of Prayaschitta that you can do even before the disease manifests. And that is where, for people who really want, who are living in a busy life, they want health, but they sometimes, out of the pressure of the conditions, they cannot sleep at night. Ayurveda says, Ratro Jagarnam Ruksham. But if you have a night duty job, now the question is whether I should sleep at night and not eat food, or I should not sleep at night and get sick. So for such people, there is another way of compensation. Ritucharya hi Shitoshna Vrishti Dosha Pratikriya. So even Ritucharya, Dinacharya, these are all compensations for the doshas of Desha and Kala. So if you make a violation, if you don't sleep in the night, Ayurveda says there is a way to compensate for that. If you had a stressful week, before that stress manifests into a disease, you can try to do a compensation which will bring back your body to some balance so that it will not result in a disease. So this second way of compensation is something where Ayurveda can help. In modern medicine, you will not be even given a treatment unless they find some real severe illness. I have seen a lot of people going to modern doctors and they will say, no problems, all blood tests are normal. Let something happen, then we will treat you. So only when the blood tests show something really abnormal, they will even start thinking of treatment. It's already too late. There Ayurveda can help. Because Sushruta says, how do you know when a person is aswastha? Doshadinam tu asamatam anumanena lakshayan aprasannendriyam vichya purusham kushalopcha. This is something which is completely ignored today. If there is aprasannata of your indriyas, it means that some imbalance is happening in your system. And that is the time for compensation, not when you actually become sick. So if you start doing compensation, if you know what is your constitution, you need to, for that to know what is your constitution, what is your weaknesses. Even living according to your constitution is a compensation, it's a prayaschitta. If I'm a Vata Prakriti, I have to live a life of prayaschitta. For my limitation, I have to do compensation. I have to take certain types of food. I have to apply oil more than a Kapha Prakriti person. If I'm a Pitta person, then I have to follow certain other Pitta se Sarpishapanam, all those things are mentioned. So it's all compensation. Everything in Ayurveda is a prayashchittam for our limitations. So unless we want to do it, there is no way. If we want to do it, then what I want to say is that there are so many ways in which people who are struggling with difficult lifestyles, difficult occupations, people who are, pilots, they are all doing violation of Dinacharya and Ritucharya. Today you can see, even if they want to be healthy, if they're willing to be healthy, they still violate. So for them, Ayurveda can offer methodologies of the compensation, rejuvenation. They can take a break if we understand what the problem. For such people, we can do. But your question, I think, was that People don't want to think about their health. What can we do for them? For that, I really don't have an answer, because we cannot put health into the mouths of people who don't want it. I want to just also point out how small things can make big difference. Once I was attending a conference on integrative medicine in the United States. There was a very interesting presentation about how attitude towards life influences expression of your genes. In the Greek system, there is this philosophy. I mean, earlier experts, I think Jackson sir, Prasad sir, they were all mentioning about Hitamayu, Sukhamayu and all that. So in Greek tradition, there is this, how your outlook on life, eudaimonism and hedonism. Hedonistic people are very self-centered. They live for survival. Whereas eudaimonism is living for a higher meaning. So scientists tried to look at two groups of people who had a hedonistic approach to life and others who had a eudaimonistic approach to life. And they looked at gene expressions, pro-inflammatory genes, how they are expressed in people who have a certain attitude towards life. And they found that people who have a hedonistic approach to life, their pro-inflammatory genes are upregulated, which means that they have a tendency to actually develop inflammation much more easier than others. Whereas people who had an eudaimonistic outlook, their pro-inflammatory genes were downregulated. So the very thought, this is the beauty of the Ayurvedic concept of swasthya, how the body and mind, taptajya ghadayoriva, how one influences the other has been so beautifully mentioned, which means your body can support your mind when the mind is weak, and the mind can support your body when the body is weak. So when your body is weak, you should use your mind to support it. And when your mind is weak, you can use the body. If you increase ojas, your mind will be strong. When the body is weak, if you have very positive thoughts, there are studies which have shown that people who believe in God, they live longer. It's a study published in the US. It doesn't prove whether God exists or not. Belief in God extends your lifespan. So Charaka says, Tasmat Nastikya Buddhim Ubecheda. Why did he say that? Because it's Ayushim. Everything that is Ayushim has been mentioned. So what I'm meaning to say is, if you are not able to follow, health is something which comes through multiple interventions. It's not just one thing. You cannot say that just because I took vegetarian food, I became healthy. That is what it is like, you are taking many sticks together, tying it up, then it becomes strong. If you have only one stick, it will break. So to be healthy, you have to do multiple things. So there are many, many small things which we can do in our life. Change our attitudes towards life. Change our, from Nastikya Buddhi, develop Astikya Buddhi. All these simple advices are given. Ragadi Rogan. Now people say stress. If you can eliminate stress, your physical body will recover profoundly. Manasaha Arthanagulyadhi Tushtir Urja Balodaya Sukhoba Bhogada Jasyad Vyate Chado Balachaya. Charaga says, when Manasa Arthanagulyad Sukhoba Bhogada Tushtir Urja Balodaya, Bala comes, Tushti comes, Urja comes, Vyadhe hai Balachaya also. So this is the dynamics which Ayurveda is very carefully explained. And this is why Ayurvedic advice will be customized. If the Ayurveda is for the Karma Purusha, now what you are telling, Dr. Dhwani, is the plight of a Karma Purusha. Each person's karma is creating the stress for them. And if we understand the stress, the karmic stress in which that individual is placed, then we can develop an individualized solution for that person. And that is the way, we can take people out of. I think Sattva Vijaya is a very, very important aspect of Ayurveda that we need to start with. People's mind, Dhairya, Atma, all that is necessary in the time of this pandemic. And slowly we must bring them to a stage where they become responsible for their own health. And then they can take it forward by themselves. So these are some of the thoughts that I have in response to your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It was really enlightening, and the explanation was, from various spectrums, and it is difficult to, summarize it in one sentence. So I think from the overall session, we gather that what we eat and what we think, our ahara, vihara, vichara, and all our actions should be well thought of before we actually do them. We have to live a conscious living in order to attain health. So if that may be a very simple, humble summary of the entire session, we may now move on to the Q&A session. So we have a few questions already in the chat box, and the first one is to Dr. Venugopalan sir. So there is a question from Sri Ananta Jagannath Rao, who has asked you to please explain the dhatus more elaborately. The dhatus in the shloka Samadosha Samagnisha. We want a grammatical explanation.
Dharanat dhatavaha, that which holds the body intact, are dhatus, the vital components of the bodily what you call tissues, you can say, I think. Because it's a technical term. I would probably request the other co-panelists to take up to explain in detail. Because only I can etymologically derive what dhatu is, but what dhatu actually is in terms of its functioning in the body will be better explained in the Vaidya, not the Sanskrit.
Sir, if I've got the question right, they're asking you to explain the dhatus in the shloka. Vyakarana dhatu.
No, samadhatu malakriyaha. You mean?
Okay.
Samadosha, samagnisha, samadhatu malakriyaha. Dhatus are 7. Rasa, Rakta, Mamsa, Meda, Asti, Majja, Shukra. We know, of course. I need not explain what these in English are. These are the 7 dhatavas from the Rasa dhatu to Shukra dhatu. That is the reproductive tissue that we all know about. And the dhatunam cha malaha, of course, we have 3 balani karnat malaha, we call it. So the sweat that we have, and the urine and the fecal matter, all these 3 together are called malas. The actions of both dhatu, sapta dhatus and 3 malas also maintain their equilibrium among themselves. This is known as samadhatu, dhatu malakriyaha samaha yatya. Of the person whose bodily functioning of these sapta dhatus in themselves and also 3 malas in themselves. That need not be between dhatus and malas. Dhatus on themselves, among themselves, and malas among themselves, also balancing and complementing each other to maintain a kind of equilibrium. That is what is meant here as samadhatu malakriya. This is what I have understood in my limited exposure to Ayurvedic.
Okay, thank you, sir. Dr. Jaykrishnan, sir, would you like to add to what Venugopalan sir said from an Ayurvedic perspective?
Yeah. Thank you. Dharana Dadava, as he explained, that is the meaning given for that word, Dhadu. Dhadus are what is appearing to be the body. The body is just Dhadu alone when you talk about the structural plane. Because what you eat is just transformed into Dhadus. Okay. We just talk about this anatomical structure. It's only 7 Dhadus which are continuously transforming. This structure is maintained, then inside that you get again a functional plane. These dhatu become organs, they perform deeper functions of vata-related movements, and deep to that you get mind. So gross plane, if you just look, in brief, you have to say that it is just what is transformed from the food. And it gets transformed stage by stage until the physical structure, what you say, the mass and volume, disappears, and it being used in the form of energy, where the volume is irrelevant. So till then, you have the 7 stages explained. So if you look from this gross plane, what appears to be the body is just 7 dhadus. This is the structure of the body. And that helps to form organs which has a bigger importance of vata-related movement, like a heart. We say it performs a deeper, stronger function, or even deep to this vata-related movements, you see that mind is also moving with thoughts. And that plane also will be regulated to a smooth level pace of thoughts, we can say. And this stage is what is known as a comfortable, relaxed, and all. So from the physical plane, like Dr. Ramanohar mentioned earlier, no, physical plane is structurally smooth. It ensures that the movements in the body related to Vata. Vata is responsible for all movements, and even transformation is a movement, growth is an expansive movement. Movement represents the nature of being alive. So this movement will be smoothly conducted. The gross structure of seven dhadus are smoothly transformed. Remember that it's nothing static. It's continuously changing. Parinamam apatyamana dhadunam abhivakini sila bhavandyayana. It is continuously subjected to parinama. But in the gross plane, you see that there is a fixed body, there is a mass, there is a volume. Inside that is continuously changing. And that allows the smooth movement, the deeper planes by Vayu. And deep to Vayu, it also allows the more space of thoughts, especially in the emotional mind. So that's why we say, even in yoga, you say that asanas and all are meant for the physical plane and targeting the Vayu movement smooth level, so that you get one aspect of the yoga like Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Mind running to different objects without your permission can be inhibited. So that is well connected to how the dhatu transformation is smoothly formed. If you look from the gross plane, it appears to be a fixed body, but it is continuously changing.
Thank you, sir. We have another question from from an attendee, Jagannath Rao ji, which I would like to direct to Dr. Ram Manohar sir, because he spoke about Prakriti, and this question is about Sara. He has asked, can you explain the types of Sara, or can you tell us something about Sara?
I mean, this is also a question that cannot actually be answered in a very short period of time.
Yes.
Yeah. The saras refer to, the the quality of the dhatus in our body. So when each dhatu is nourished completely and attains its perfect level of structural and functional expression, we say that dhatu sara. Sara means essence. So the Ayurvedic theory is that each person may have a dominance of a certain type of dhatu. One particular dhatu may be more perfectly expressed in an individual. And then we say that person has dominating in that dhatu sara. And this Charaka Samhita has described this, giving characteristics of people, through which we can identify. There are actually phenotypic expressions through which we can know what particular sara a person has. So this helps in treatment in understanding certain tendencies and all that, but this requires more elaborate clinical discussions to be able to go into the details. First, we must discuss about dhatus and then come to the sara. But for just a simple takeaway concept, this is what I would like to mention.
Thank you, sir. It was a quick and simple summary of a huge concept. Thank you, sir. We have another question from an attendee, Anjan, which I would like to ask Dr. Prasad. He asks, how can this knowledge be transferred to the masses so that our nation will be happy, healthy, and a harmonious society? How can we offer this essential knowledge to the mass of public?
Yeah, that's again, as Ramji told, it's a very tough question to answer, because it is more about the policy and everything. It is not about the quality of the knowledge that you want to disseminate. It should come to the priority of the governments or the policy makers. Then I think in due course of time, all these ideas can be put into the practice of maybe community medicine or preventive health or something like that. Otherwise, I think there is hardly any way to put them into the society for the help of the masses, because ideas which are not implemented and improvised according to the different place and time, they are not going to flourish. They will rest in the pages of the Samhitas. So there should be a concerted effort to bring all these things into the notice of the governments, policymakers, and bodies like maybe the Niti Aayog and everything. Then they should be brought into the consideration of local self-government systems. Then I think in due course of time, we can expect a change. It's not a child's play after all.
That is very true. Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Yes, Dr.
I just want to add a sentence here to complement the views of Dr. Prasadji. Unless and until the Ayurvedic community and modern physicians come into a kind of same platform to exchange their pluses and minuses and to make the society aware of the strength of Ayurveda, the society, the policymakers may not be in a position to take Ayurveda seriously, because Ayurveda has always been, still in this COVID condition, government is unable to tell that Ayurveda is a parallel system that is also equally contributing for the prevention of the spread of COVID. So totally the government is now exposed, as far as I am concerned. Despite the vaccine, arrival of the vaccine is still delayed, and so many people are suffering from this COVID, still government is unable to come out with the success stories, share with the public. So definitely the policy makers and government, I don't think it's in a position, unless and until these Ayurvedic doctors and modern doctors form a common platform and accept each other's strength, both complement each other, then only the society will be in a position to understand the need of having both Ayurveda and these systems, because the other system is already here for past 200 years, 100 years. So much of development has taken place elsewhere. But the same kind of development is also there here in Ayurveda. But modern doctors don't accept. So the health care of the society is not properly understood by the society itself first. Only the society can demand. According to the demand from the society, the policymakers will change their policy. So it has to happen at the ground level, wherein both modern doctors and the Ayurvedic doctors, ICMR should facilitate every other major modern hospital to have the Ayurvedic wing to offer comprehensive solutions to the health issues suffered by the patients. Unless and until this happens, I don't think the policymakers will have a look at the fields of Ayurveda. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Would any of you like to reply to or add to Dr. Venugopal sir's opinion?
I just wanted to answer a question which I tried to, answer, but I think there was a question about the opposite of eudaimonism. And so I want to just point out that it is hedonism, Hedonism. I just noticed that question was typed, hedonism.
Okay, thank you, sir. We shall now open the floor for the panelists to ask questions. I think Dr. Somit would like to ask a question. Dr. Somit.
Yeah, thank you, Dhwani. And in fact, this was a kind of a observation while discussion was going on. So we see that Dr. Ram Manohar was also explaining that how our modern day lifestyle, force us to follow certain practices was not in accordance with Shastras, and specifically in Nidra, Ahara, Abrahmacharyam, which is said to be as three main pillars of health or indicators of health, which we need to follow. There is a very a 16th century book, Chem Kautulaha, where they try to quantify certain parameters for living healthy, or we say Vamashayi, Dvibhunjano, Shanmutri, Dvipurishakaha, Swalpa Maithunakari cha, Shatam Varshani Jivayet. So are these, so it's open for all the panelists to just share their views upon, are these take home messages as to if we want to live long, whether sleeping on the Vama Bhaga or the left hand side after eating twice a day, urinate 6 times a day, defecate twice a day, and follow the sexual intercourse as per Ritucharya. Are these certain very simple ways to follow good lifestyle as and also as an indicator for having a good health. So this is a question I wanted to ask for from all the panelists based on their and the opinions.
Dr. Somin, Dharma Shastram insists Vama Bhagena Vama Parshvena Samvishe. While you sleep, when you lie down, you have to turn towards your left. This is not only the advice from the Ayurveda, it is also from the Dharma Shastra. So many of the Ratyam Akramya cha Achame, it is one thing that Ashtanga Sangraham insists on. Everywhere, whenever the Vedic scholars go out and come in, they do the Pada Praksharanam, do the Achamanam. Immediately, these are all the practices to keep oneself healthy, especially during the time of pandemic, that the personal cleanliness is much insisted. Now everybody, the government insists to wear the mask, often washing the hands with the sanitizer and all those things. All these things were in the Dharma Shastra. In so many, in Manu Smriti, Yajnavalkya Smriti, Atri Smriti, every Smriti insists on so many other practices which are 100% correlate with Ayurvedic advices in Dincharya and Viticharya. So all these, even this Maithunam is also part of Dharma Shastra. So whatever you call from the perspective of health, it is from the perspective of Dharma. So in short, the Dharma Shastram is not only for your Paraloka, it is also for Ihaloka. Only unless and until you live a comfortable life, a worthy life in Ihaloka, your Paralokam cannot be assured and ensured. So this is what we can understand from the Dharma Shastric point of view as far as the questions that you have posed here. Thank you.
Dr. Ram Manohar, sir. In fact, I wanted your views on from a perspective of chronobiology
I wanted to just respond to what Somit said. I mean, these advices are also, you need to look at it in the context of the time and place. Today, even though 16th century is just 400 years ago, that a lot of things have changed. So when we give some blanket advices, we must be sensitive to what is very relevant today. If I were to advise, I would say, avoid junk food, avoid, eating too much of meat. So there are many very obvious unhealthy practices that people are following today. This Dvimi, the Dipurishi, Shanmutri and all that, these are Vegas. You cannot also ask people to go and to the toilet 6 times. It doesn't happen like that. It is an outcome. It is a sign of health. You cannot sit in the toilet and force yourself the bowels to move twice a day, because it has to happen. Pravartayetu prachalitam natu yatnadu dire, it's very clearly mentioned. So the basic thing is, what are the most unhealthy, what are the highest risk factors that people are getting exposed to today? We should identify that and first ask them to come out of that. It is a slow journey. We have to go step by step. The most dangerous things we have to first ask people to stop doing, and then go slowly before they can come to Upastamba and all those things. I mean, I think there's a long gap. So I believe that we should be very careful there. We know, bring some more physical activity, avoid sedentary life. This would be the exercise. Sitting is the new smoking. People are telling world around, don't sit. Asya Sukham, as Ayurveda said. Sitting, if you sit, you will die. That's what the new finding is. Exercise is said to prevent 13 types of cancer. So if you can be physically active. So I think we should make it Yuganurupa, the advice that we give, take away messages.
I think, sir, what I meant was indicators of health, not the advices. Like, for example, as you were telling so when we talk about, because a patient comes to us and asks, how do I know that my excretory functions are right? What is like, for example, when we say in our Shastras have been told, Bahumutra is a sign of Pramehi, or maybe very grossly correlated is type 2 diabetes. So people ask, what is Bahumutrata? So is it 10 times, it is 5 times? No. So what I was just trying to state is not this as an advice, whether these are indicators of a proper dhatu parinama or malotsarga, whatever Dr. Jayakrishna was talking about, that if dhatu parinama is properly, then malotsarga would also have proper.
What you said is a combination. They are not all indicators, because Vamashayitam is something a person has to do. It's not an indicator. So that's why I was confused. You are advising Vamashayanam. That's an advice. That's not an indicator. So these are not sets of indicators in that sense. What were the other ones? One was Vamashayanam, Alpamayanam. That is not an indicator of health. That is a practice that you have to follow. In fact, only Dvipurishi, Shanmutri, that is the only indicator. The other things are practices. So we need to, even the ability to wake up in the Brahma Muhurta is a sign of swasthya. Because a sick person cannot wake up. And it will create. So you have to first correct I think the indicators of health should also be made very realistic. We have to find out, if we give goals which are unattainable to people, they will feel miserable, because this will create some feelings of guilt. Oh, I am not having this, I am not able to achieve this. So I think it would be better to understand what state of, and there are many things here also, there are certain people, Vyayama Nityaha. They are these people who are having good Agni, and for them Ahita is not affecting. Etat prakrityeva viruddhamannam samyoga samskara vashena chedam ityadya avijnaya yatheshta cheshtaha charanti yat agni balasya shakti. So Ayurveda itself says that there are yatheshta cheshtaha. So I think everything needs to be brought into context. There are people who can do yatheshta cheshta and they are still not having any problem. This is the question that Agnivesha asks Atreya also. What is the use of Hidahida Vibhaga? Because there are people who follow all this advice and still get sick. And there are people who don't follow any of this and they are healthy. And then all these points are brought out. Hidahida Tvepeganda Niyamosmara Nischitaha. So I think if you want to tell even indicators of health, it will vary for a Kapha Prakriti person, the goal of health that he can achieve. A Vata person, if you say he has to be Dvipurishi and Shanmutri, he may get into a lot of stress, because even in a compensated Vata, there may be challenges. So you have to give a goal for a Vata person which is achievable for him. A Pitta person may have more bowel movements in a day in spite of all the compensations that they are doing. So for Kapha Prakriti, it will be different. For different individuals, it will be different. So I think the general principle should be talked about and people should be made more aware. And first and foremost, we must distinguish between what they have to do and what are the indicators. And indicators will change depending on the level of health you are evolving. So I think, this is enough. I mean, otherwise it will go on. There's so many things to discuss. I hope I conveyed my point.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So,
Okay.
Actually, this Vipurishi, Shanmutri, all these things come under the advice part, because the Vidhiling Lakara is heard there. So it is an advice. But that means that need not be even an indicator, that can also be advice. As the Vipurisha and Shanmutrata, you have to adjust your Ahara Vihara in such a way that it ends up with you pass your stools twice a day, and almost 6 is only an indicator. It can be sometimes 5 or 6.
I think we lost his connection. Dr. Prasad, please go on.
Yeah, no, just to add what Dr. Ram Manohar was saying and Dr. Saumit was asking. I think what Dr. Saumit was trying to explain, I think they varies from time to time and place to place and prakriti to prakriti. All these things are very important. We cannot make it as a hard and fast standard. Whereas one thing we have to understand, from what Venugopalan sir was also saying, that these are all related to Dharma Shastra and everything. See, there are n number of ways to become sick, but there is only one way to be healthy. So I think there may not be much contradiction across shastras or scriptures or schools and everything about how to become healthy. So I think obviously there will be a lot of similarities or even copy paste type of statements about how to become healthy. And I think one very logical way of understanding a healthy person could be like this, which is given in, of course, from Ayurvedic texts only. Tallakshanam panjadasha pragaram aharakamksha swadanam vipakaha पुरीशमूत्रानिल सृष्टदाच तथेन्द्रियार्थग्रहणे च शक्ति मनस्सुखत्वं बलवर्णलाभः स्वप्नः सुखेन प्रतिबोधनं च. I think this is, one of the most beautiful explanation of the experience of health, I would say. Of course, that may not be objective or countable. That is true, but this could be the most beautiful explanation of how a person is going to experience health. So I think that aspect is to be highlighted, whereas you can put this into a social perspective as well by health education and making the people more conscious and intelligent about their sense of health. And definitely the adverse factors are to be considered from the context, like see the consumption of alcohol, the consumption of tobacco, all these things are very prevalent. Then the issues of starvation, all these things are very prevalent. So there are many things. Previously we had a question how to put these ideas into the masses. So it is a multifaceted issue, and what we can do is, before putting these into the masses, I think there should be some level of understanding of the ideas in a deeper sense, and people should practicing it at least in the personal level and the family level. Then the changes will start percolating into the society as well. This is what I would like to add.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. I think it was an amazing session by all the four panelists, with all your expertise brought down into few words that all of us could easily understand. So I would now like to hand over the session to Abhinavji for the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Dhani. And I think this was an amazing session. Both the sessions were amazing, and the amount of knowledge that all our panelists, showed and shared with us. More importantly, it is very, very heartening for us to see that such a copious body of knowledge, first of all, exists, and we are honored to have so many learned scholars who are spending and devoting their life to studying and then sharing all of this information with us. And one can only hope that the government and the authorities also step up and do their part in bringing more recognition and adoption to a wider set of people across the country and across the world. So with that, I would sincerely, on behalf of the Center for Soft Power and Indic Academy, I want to convey my sincerest thanks to all of our distinguished and esteemed panelists for spending this time this evening and sharing their knowledge with us. And for those of you who have been attending, and I want to thank you for taking this time and listening to such a distinguished panel. We will be putting this video up on YouTube in a couple of days, and we will share that link. So if you don't already do, please take a minute to follow us on our social media handles at Indic Academy at Twitter on Indic Academy, and you can also visit us on indicacademy.org to find more information on such upcoming sessions. So with that, again, my sincerest thanks, and thank you all for joining.
Thank you. Shubharatri.
Shubharatri.